Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Hello, welcome back to Soul Archaeology, the 100th episode. I am so grateful to be here. I think I mentioned this in the last episode, but it just feels like such a gift to be in this place, to hit this milestone that feels really important to me personally and to this podcast and what I hope to create with it and how I hope that it grows. And I'm just so deeply grateful for each and every one of you who chooses to show up each week, to be present, to listen, to share, to take in the information and let it resonate with what's within you. So thank you. And I'm happy we've landed in this place together. I created this to provide space for you to land and orient and hopefully feel maybe seen, heard, understood, to kind of find your place within the collective web, the collective energy field. And I'm always hoping that it's still landing in that way. But I would also love to hear if you have any input or suggestions or things, people, ideas you'd like to see on the podcast. If you like the long form interviews with other people, or if you prefer the shorter energy updates that I do weekly. I'm just always open to hearing what's needed and what you prefer and what really resonates and feels good for you. I'm going to do some Q&A in this episode. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about Pluto. You know I love to talk about Pluto. Pluto is the ruler of my chart. Pluto is in my first house. Pluto is power. Pluto is deep, slow, and penetrating. Pluto is also the planet furthest from the sun. So it's furthest from our daily awareness. Pluto impacts so much of our life, but in a very distant, even indirect way. It brings us into collective themes. We all belong to a Pluto generation, and this is something I'd like to talk a little bit about as well, because depending on when you were born, the year that you were born, and I think I'll probably create some content around this because it's really fascinating to understand your Pluto generation. But our Pluto generation defines our evolutionary purpose here collectively in this lifetime. It not only defines our individual purpose depending on where it lands in our own natal chart, but it also shows us how we're meant to transform individually and as a generation, as a group of people. If you're part of the Pluto in Libra generation, which many of you are, that means that you are moving out of your Pluto square. There's going to be some relief. A lot of cardinal signs have received this release on the pressure as Pluto moved out of Capricorn. If you have Pluto in Scorpio, that means that you're entering into your Pluto square. And this is a life check. This is where you're forced to sort of embody more of your power, more of your truth, more of your evolutionary purpose in this lifetime. Depending on what degree your Pluto lands within, what sign it lands within, they're probably mostly Pluto in Virgo, Pluto in Libra, Pluto in Scorpio, and then Pluto in Sagittarius people here. But through this retrograde period, Pluto stations retrograde on May 4th through October 13th. So all through the summer, through the beginning of the fall season, we have Pluto retrograde. And this is not unique. Pluto does this every year. It's part of its journey. It spends a lot of time retrograding because it moves so slowly. So this is just part of Pluto's natural rhythm and part of our collective energetic rhythm. But as we know, retrogrades are underworld journeys. It's a descent, and it's an opportunity to go deeper into self, to witness, excavate, understand our psyche, what's held in our own individual underworld. Pluto entered Aquarius officially for a 20-year transit in November of 2024. This is its first retrograde in years that it's staying in Aquarius. It's not dipping back into Capricorn. And we are doing the work in the realm of Aquarius. We are going deeper. We are excavating. Wherever Pluto is moving through, we're going to be going deeper into the work related to that sign. So wherever you have Aquarius in your chart, it will be under review over the next 6 months. And Aquarius is the future. It's focused on what we're building. It's focused on innovation. It's focused on the group, the collective we rather than me. Aquarius is also fixed air, so it's related to our beliefs. Pluto is the unconscious. It's power dynamics. It wants us to be empowered, and it will bring us to wherever we are out of balance with our own power, where we're afraid to become more intimate with it, where we're participating in unhealthy power dynamics. This transit of Pluto through Aquarius until 2043 is pushing us into the future. It's pushing us into what we're moving through, what we're becoming, what we're evolving into as a species, as a collective. It's related to technology, communication. It's related to advancements, AI, the collective web of consciousness. Pluto takes roughly 248 years to travel around the sun. So it means that we only have Pluto in a sign every 248 years. Pluto guides us towards transformation. It brings us into the deepest of lessons, the big life-altering lessons, maybe not the things that we choose and decide every day. That's much more of Mars's realm, because we know Mars is the lower octave of Pluto. They're very related. I talked a lot about this in my Mars-Pluto opposition episode, but it really affects the sort of trajectory of our life because it's life themes. So it's how we feel empowered within the greater scope of our lives. Pluto in Aquarius means Pluto, the underworld, the planet of transformation, death, and rebirth, the unconscious, is moving through Aquarius, a fixed air sign. It's a masculine sign. So it deals with knowledge and wisdom, data. It's highly intelligent, innovative, unique. And in its shadow, Aquarius can be rather aloof, detached, or overly focused on the mental body, overly focused on the we rather than me. Maybe even stark or stale. I always think about the shadow of Aquarius as like being in a lab with fluorescent lights. It just feels disconnected from the earth, from what's living, what's real, and what's growing. Stephen Forrest, an evolutionary astrologer, says that Aquarius's evolutionary purpose is to cultivate an absolute loyalty to truth, an uncompromised expression of self. That's why people see it as the liberator or the rebel, is because that's its evolutionary purpose. That's its focus, which means that it won't remain the same. This is a time of consciousness expansion, rapid consciousness expansion, when we think about Aquarius, it is related to consciousness. It's related to paradigm shifts and breakthroughs. In modern astrology, it's ruled by Uranus. In traditional astrology, it's ruled by Saturn. So it does have this push and pull energy of needing to expand, wanting to expand, but also feeling quite fixed as well. And I see this coming through now collectively as a species, is this desire to remain within our own echo chambers. This fear of challenging the truths we have upheld for so long. And we all have our own individual truths. That's what makes life so dynamic and beautiful and expansive, is that we all have different truths. The shadow of Aquarius is homogenization, because everything wants to remain the same. There's this push to create this homogeneous consciousness, these homogeneous truths, and it squashes diversity. That's the threat of globalization, is that we lose touch with our own unique expression of our culture, our traditions, our roots. So it's a good time to reflect. Where are you so fixated on a belief system, connected to a political party, connected to an identity, connected to a religion even, or a spiritual belief? This doesn't mean you have to change what you believe. It's just simply a time to reflect on your relationship with your beliefs, on your relationship with the structure or the hierarchy, going a little bit deeper and exploring whether or not the roots of what you believe are actually real and true, or they're coming from another hierarchical system of power and control. And this is the piece with Pluto and Aquarius, is it is revealing these hierarchies of control, externally and internally. Because we all have our own internal hierarchies. We all have our own internal beliefs around power and control and order. This is Pluto, the planet of death and rebirth and destruction and transformation, in a fixed sign. Even if it's air, it's going to be breaking things down, and specifically breaking down belief systems, breaking down what we thought we knew, what we've been attached to for maybe our entire lives. It's going to start revealing the underbelly of some of these belief systems. And what's interesting, what I'm noticing and kind of what I'm sensing and feeling into with this transit, is it's going to reveal specifically the underbelly of the things that we see as virtuous. Movements, campaigns, ways that we have been fed to believe that something has this cloak of virtue, but is actually quite dark underneath. This could be related to politics, philanthropy, organizations, religion. It can be related to many different things. But it's just a time for us to reckon with our relationship with our beliefs. Are we fixed in them because we are afraid of seeing what's underneath? Are we fixed or attached to them because it feels safe to belong to something? Or does it truly feel in alignment? On a collective level, we are challenging our outdated systems related to technology, governance, community structures. On an individual level, we're going to be looking at our relationship with authority, the status quo, progress, transformation. This can feel really disorienting, but also liberating, because we get to up-level. What I'm sensing is that we are moving from one level of consciousness into the next over the next 20 years. And what does that process require? Well, it requires us to challenge the boxes that we've placed ourselves within. It asks for us to look at specifically our beliefs and create space for change and evolution of those beliefs, which requires us to do the work on the ego, looking at our shadow, going into the basement. So the next 6 months will have us review what we believe. Even if what we believe feels pure and truthful to us, are those beliefs connected into a system that is no longer operating in integrity at high frequency? Pluto transmutes lead to gold. It's the transformation of self at the core. It shows us that we must face death and loss and reckoning to transform the ego. It's more subtle and old. It's not often conscious within us, but immensely impactful. It's maybe not something we notice every day, but it's something that's whispering in the background. This retrograde will have us look at where we resist change individually and collectively. Also, this idea of sort of the elite versus the collective. Still reckoning with the systems that serve only a small percentage of the population and whether or not that actually still serves. And we want to remember that because Pluto moves so slowly, it affects and sort of directs and shapes our evolutionary path as a species, as a collective. It's guiding us somewhere. And when we look back on the previous Pluto and Aquarius transits, the last one was during the American Revolutionary War through the French Revolution. And as we know, that time was so incredibly pivotal. It has shaped and formed democracies across the globe. Our democracy in the US is the oldest democracy, and it's really set the foundation for the other modern democracies. And during this time, it was 1777 through 1798, we had the American Revolution, the French Revolution, which both of those began to spark this breakdown of hierarchy and monarchy. It was the first introduction of the modern democracy. This was also the first industrial revolution. And I want to emphasize this because Pluto in Aquarius is known for its advancements in technology and science. During this one, in particular, the last one, 1777 to 1798, there was this movement of more people moving to cities because more jobs were becoming available. It was the first wave of industrialism, sea travel, land travel. The world began to connect more. There was more colonization. There was more opportunity for places to be colonized because there was more transportation. There was more travel for pleasure, travel for exploration. The previous Pluto and Aquarius transit was in the 1500s. And this was filled with advancements in alchemy, astrology, the wisdom expansion. Monarchs were seeking out the philosopher's stone, which they believed was the way to stay immortal, to transcend time, aging, and death. Once again, there was colonization, more transportation. We were exploring new worlds, even within the mind. And it's interesting to reflect on what's happening now as a species, as a collective, for us individually, where we are moving beyond the confines of our consciousness, moving beyond our limiting beliefs, working directly with the subconscious, and collectively, what we're exploring, both the light and the shadow of this time. There are elite groups seeking immortality. Once again, I feel like that will never go away. That might just be part of this human journey until we evolve out of this more 3D space. They're sending celebrities to outer space. The elite are, like I said, looking for ways to become immortal. We are learning more and more and more about neuroscience, things that spiritual or religious groups always knew, but is now being proven through science, through neuroscience. There's a whole territory within the brain we have not even accessed yet. There's telepathy. There's time travel. This is all going to be explored in this 20-year period of Pluto and Aquarius, especially when Uranus shifts into Gemini, which is starting in July. It'll retrograde again, but officially in 2026. So the previous limits and boundaries that we created, the conscious constructs of those, are being reviewed. We're already pushing and moving past them, which is very fast. This Pluto and Aquarius transit will be fast. So it's important that we resource. It's important that we focus on what is orienting, what is supportive, what is grounding and rooting. We're still living on this organic planet. We are organic. How can we be with all of these advancements, all of these changes, breakthroughs, breakdowns? How can we be with AI, social media, technology in the way that it is now, and still very much be the earth, our organic selves, this physical matter? How can we honor the needs of our physical bodies, our nervous systems, and hold the great potential of this Pluto and Aquarius time, both the shadow and the light? And I think that these retrograde periods provide us opportunities to sit with and integrate and review our own internal landscape, our own internal belief systems, our own territories that have yet to be explored, and digest all of the change. We will more and more over the next 20 years have to reckon with our survival as a species, whether or not it's possible to move at the same pace without course correcting in a big way. And it's important to let those big chunks of awareness digest. That's a lot to sit with. Sometimes I think about when the amount that's being challenged, what we're having to sit with and be with every single day. It's just too much. Can you give yourself some space to be with these big pieces? It's like an animal that eats something really big. I think about a snake that eats something big and then it just sits there and digests it. Doesn't go for more. A lion knows when it's had enough. Just let it sit. Let the digestive enzymes work. Allow your psyche to absorb it before moving on to the next thing. And I think some of what's happening is we are being inundated with so much information and stimuli and breakthroughs and challenges to our ego that we hit overwhelm thresholds. And this is what I want you to pay attention to through this retrograde period, is when do you hit that threshold and what do you need to integrate and come back to self? And better yet, how can you stay connected to self so you know before you hit those overwhelm thresholds? And this is not just emotionally or physically, this is also mentally. The amount of mental and emotional, energetic data that we're in contact with is not natural. So this is where we have discernment and we come back to our practices and we know when it's time to turn off TV, social media, news, where we're seeking dopamine within those spaces. This transit will alter life at every level. And that's a lot to hold. The other piece I want to mention with Aquarius in particular, the shadow of Aquarius can be this superiority, this homogenization, this desire for homogenization, like I mentioned earlier, this belief that your beliefs are best and anything else is bad. Aquarius doesn't like boxes, which means that it can lean towards desire for a universal truth, which simply doesn't work in this time. Currently, the way we are as a species, the different cultures, roots, landscapes, places we all come from. So just notice within yourself where you seek that universal truth and where you sort of project it onto others. And when we have the outer planets that go retrograde, I always see it as a time to integrate some of the rapid, fast change that we've undergone. So this Pluto in Aquarius retrograde is going to feel like an opportunity to sit with what has changed over the last 6 months and what wants to be integrated. What do you actually feel about what you've received, the realizations? Are you allowing yourself to actually consider that things might be different than how you think they are? This is an ego death, but it's a beautiful time for integration and reconnection with the body. So this week is sort of shadowed with this Pluto retrograde. We also have Mercury joining with Chiron. So our core wounds could be amplified. Mercury is still in Aries. It's getting ready to shift into Taurus at the end of the week. So there's some fire, some heat, some passion, some even frustration, but a lot to work with. A lot of opportunity for alchemy because we need that heat in order to transform something. I wanted to move into the questions. I did a poll on Instagram and asked for questions, so I will answer those now. Someone asked, which modality and trainings, teachers have been the most impactful on you and your work? This is a great question. I would say my intuitive healing training, which moved into receiving my shamanic initiatory rites of the Moon Eye Key. I received all 9 of them at one time, which was so intense. That was in 2020. And that time was so powerful, so internal. Receiving those rites initiated me deeper into my shamanic work, deeper into my intuitive healing work, into the quantum work. It was quite literally a quantum leap, and that was incredibly powerful. But then I moved into my somatic work, and I would say my somatic training has been the most impactful for me in this part of my life. It brought me into my own internal work around my nervous system and has completely shaped and formed how I see life in general, especially my work and relationships. I've done a somatic attachment therapy certificate program, and I'm in an advanced somatic practitioner's training called Alchemical Alignment now, where we are really bridging spirituality and science and entering into some of these realms that we've discussed that are beyond the constructs of the mind and how they connect to the physical body. So there's a lot of really, really cool work being done and modalities being studied and created. The next question is, were there reservations embracing sharing your unique gifts? Absolutely. Yeah. I think because I've always been so sensitive. I've always been deeply psychic and in tune and sensitive to the world, sensitive to my surroundings. There was this sort of subconscious fear of actually going deeper into that and opening myself more. And then there was a major fear of rejection and abandonment, which is still present within me, that I am always tending to and being with. And it's much softer and not as aggressive and powerful, but it's there. And so I'm always tending to that space within me, and having to move through it and having to allow myself to embody my power and embody my truth and embody my gifts regardless of that little fear. And it's really just a young part of me, so I had to work through a lot of reservations, a lot of fears around being rejected, around being sort of isolated or cast out, because my life did change drastically when I entered into this work. The next question is, are you open to working with others who are interested in the same type of energy work? And the answer is yes, absolutely. I have my mentorship that is currently full, but opening again in June. And this is an intimate one-on-one space where we work together for 3 months. We work together through your own internal layers around embodying your gifts, which, similar to what I mentioned before, we always do our inner work alongside our external work. So as people who practice or work with others, practitioners, space holders, our inner work it happens in conjunction with what we're creating and sharing and what's moving through us. So I have my one-on-one container. I'm also creating a cohort, a group container. I'm not sure when it will be launched. I'm waiting for it to feel fully cooked and formed. I know a lot of people put things out without it fully being ready, and I just can't do that with this. It feels like it needs enough space to be fully formed and ready. But watch out for that. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what wants to come through over the next few years as I deepen into my work and trainings. And I think so many of us are craving to be more embodied in this type of work. So there will be a huge collective wave. So if you're someone who has been thinking about wanting to study energy medicine, somatic work, whatever it is, I encourage you to. Next question is, what is the best resource for Astrology 101? I love this question. I'm actually creating an astrology course, hoping to be released the end of this summer. So it will be a live group course going through basically Astrology 101, but astrology in the way that I work with it, which is a little different than other astrology courses. So working through the lens of individual evolution and transformation. I know there are also beautiful courses. I'm trying to think. I think Virginia Rosenberg has a course. I've had a few friends do her course. I've heard it's wonderful. I also think that learning through your own chart is the most impactful way to really understand and integrate astrological wisdom. So even just, utilizing a resource like, I love Stephen Forrest, and he has many books that teach you about evolutionary astrology. So you can start just working with your own chart and mastering the wisdom of your own chart before going into a course, or before even, moving into these more high-level astrological ideas and thoughts. I also have my North and South Node course, which is going to be released in a few weeks. Whoever wins the giveaway actually will receive it for free, but it's coming out over the next few weeks for everyone. So, and that can be really helpful because when you master sort of one area of your chart, I feel like it gives you a lot of insight and wisdom in that shades and colors the rest of your chart. So that would be my advice, is really master one part of your chart. Really understand it deeply. I think the North and South Node are an amazing place to begin, because they give you a high level wisdom and really tell you what your evolutionary purpose is here, which affects the rest of your chart as well. The next question, my Saturn return is coming to a close. Any rituals or reflections you might recommend? Yes. So, Saturn rituals. This is not my area of expertise, and I'm not going to even give you any advice on Saturn rituals because I don't typically work with magic. But there are great resources, magical practices you can work with in really honoring your relationship with Saturn. And I always see it as when you have a return, you are befriending that planet and that area of your chart. So I see it as integration work. And a simple practice is just sitting and reflecting on what you've learned since March of 2023. What challenges have you been met with? Saturn challenges us. It forces us to mature, to evolve through to ripen. What is your relationship with challenge? What is your relationship with structure and discipline? Where are you still falling? Because I'm assuming your Saturn is in Pisces since we're nearing the end of this transit. Where are you still falling into patterns of escapism? Fear of fully embodying your truth and your power? Fear of honoring the masculine, perhaps? As you near the end of specifically a transit like your Saturn return, it's going to get a little pushy. It can feel a little jarring, even confronting. So I really recommend creating space for yourself to reflect, to sit with where it still feels a little pushy, a little uncomfortable or gritty, and maybe even just sitting in meditation and asking Saturn what it wants to share with you, what you need to know, what you can do to honor the last few bits of your Saturn return. I think when we can befriend parts of our chart, specifically befriending Saturn, it can create a whole lot of flow and ease where there's typically challenge. When we don't resist Saturn, when we don't resist our inner masculine, the discipline, the structure that wants to be integrated, we give ourselves space to really grow and expand past our fears. And the last question, which is the most tender, she said, my soul dog passed recently. Does it get easier? My heart is aching. Number one, I just want to give you a huge hug and say, I'm so sorry. And also how lucky you are to have experienced a soul dog relationship, because it is truly one of the most precious and pure relationships we get to experience in this human existence. Because the relationship to a soul dog or a soul animal is so pure, I think that the cut is so deep and penetrating, and it's like a laser cut. You know, it goes straight to the core of our hearts. And also because our nervous systems are so intertwined with our soul animals, because so often we're able to connect with them in a way that is deeper than our relationships to other humans, because they feel more safe, perhaps. When we lose them, it feels like we're losing our safety, our foundations. And so I would say work with your animal, work with him or her in a way that is intertwined with your own personal work. They can become your guide. They can become remain a part of your team, a part of your safety team, and invite them in to still be a part of your life. I think that allows it to soften so much. For me, the loss of Arlo was so profound that I had to go through this whole alchemical process in order to re-emerge having a new relationship with him. And it's happened over, a year and a half. It has not been fast. So I think we're all in our own timeline, and I think we all move through grief in a different way. But I would encourage you to maybe, if it feels right, explore what it would be like to have a relationship with your soul dog in a new way. They can still very much so be a part of your life and a part of your journey. and to not force yourself to rush through the pain. I still have things that I can't move in my house because they were his or because it reminds me of him, and I'm just allowing myself to move at my own pace. And my partner just lost his soul dog as well. So similarly for him, it's like her bed is still in the corner, and they're just give yourself time to be with the grief. And you might already be doing that, but just don't feel like you have to move through it quickly, because our societal constructs don't honor grief really in the way that we need them to. You might feel pressured to move through it quickly, and I just encourage you to simmer in it. And I'm sending you so much love. But don't be afraid to connect with him or her. And remember that you have the power to as well. So thank you for being here for the 100th episode. Thank you for your support over the last 2 years, a year and a half. It's been just incredible. I'm so deeply grateful. I was walking today. I did a hike in Topanga Canyon where I live outside of LA, and I found a wild orchid. And I saw it from the trail. It was in the woods. And I was just like, that's a beautiful flower. And I walked into the woods and I realized it was a wild orchid, and I'd never seen one. And it just felt symbolic and felt like it was something that wanted to be shared on this episode, because I was hiking right before I came home to record this. So I came home and looked up the symbolism of orchid. And this is sort of a consolidation of a lot of different resources, but just things I noted. One is that they're slow growing and they do require really unique, precise conditions to thrive. So they represent patience, inner cultivation, refinement, maturation, resilience, adaptability, devotion, and refinement. So I feel like this orchid symbolism wanted to come through for all of you as well. And an invitation to allow this retrograde period to bring you into your depths, knowing that there's always this potential for beauty to emerge, light to emerge. Orchids are connected to healing and fertility. So if you're wanting to create something or birth something into this world, remember that it might happen in a place you least expect it to. It might happen in a way you least expect it to. And maybe it's been waiting for the perfect conditions to emerge so that when it does, it can find this enduring beauty, the resilience, and the strength to remain unique and true and real for you. So thank you for being here. In honor of the 100th episode, I am doing a giveaway. This week is the last week for it. So if you'd like to participate, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. Share an episode on social media and tag me, tag Soul Archaeology, Ritual Life, and Pound Jewelry, which I am linking all of this below in the show notes as well, so you don't have to remember everything. And then let me know. Send me a screenshot either through email or DM on Instagram. Thank you for everyone who has already submitted. I adore you and appreciate you, and I'm trying to get back to all the messages, so just be patient and I'll get back to you this week. But as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your presence, for your beauty, for your light. As always, take what resonates. Allow the rest to release and move through you.